Hey, this is the OnePlus 11, and I've had it for almost 30 days. You know, I've had so many good things to say about OnePlus over the years, but, you know, being honest, the last few years has lost a bit of steam for me. Now, a real world review means I don't focus on specs, but actually using the phone, making phone calls, playing games, text messages, you know, using a phone and not reading the back of the box to you. Now, make sure you subscribe to my channel as I do reviews, not just as the phone comes out, but I cover them throughout the full year. So if you like that type of content, hit subscribe. Now, the OnePlus 11 feels like the return of OnePlus. There is so much packed into this phone. They even brought back that little stupid notifications slider that people really love. It wasn't included in the OnePlus 10T, and that bothered a lot of people, but it's here now. Now, sitting in your hand, this phone feels like any modern phone. It's a large phone with a 6.7-inch display and a nearly bezel-less design. Up top, there is an earpiece that doubles as a speaker and one bottom firing speaker. Now, this combo is what OnePlus calls the dual reality speakers with Dolby Atmos support. More on that later. The display is curved a little bit, and some people will cringe when they hear the word curve, but it's such a slight curve, and I think it bodes well when the phone is in your hand. I think it just sits in the back of your hand pretty well. I actually do enjoy it. Now, on the side of the phone, you have your volume rockers, which are nice and clicky, and then on the opposite side, you have a power button. And in my opinion, you know, it's the perfect spot where my hand naturally rests. And above that, we have that notification slider I just talked about, which I actually keep on vibrate most of the time, so I don't really fiddle with it too much, but to get to it, you just kind of slide your hand up a little bit, and then you're there. On the back of the phone, we do have our camera cluster, and you have that stovetop look with the bottom right being the flash and the Hasselblad text in the middle. The camera cluster is pretty large, but that's expected with most premium phones these days. Now, where my hand naturally sits in landscape mode is actually on the camera housing, which leaves me with smudges all over the lens, and I'm always having to clean this lens a lot. Now, this phone does come in two different colors. We have a green color and a black color. OnePlus sent me the black color, obviously. I think it's a non-intrusive color, and it has some pretty cool details on the back of the phone. And yeah, I like the design. I don't think there's anything that wows me, but I think it's just a good looking phone. Now, OnePlus displays are great, and this one is no different. It's 2K resolution with 120 Hz fluid AMOLED display. It's LTPO 3.0, and the screen can go down to 1 Hz, so the always-on display uses even less energy. The display is also 10-bit Dolby Vision, which is the first major phone to do it. Now, going to Netflix and watching anything Dolby is pretty cool. Now, a movie I like to watch is The Irishman, just because it has a lot of colors, the highlights, the details, and there's some really good content that I've seen, especially on a mobile device. Now, this video I'm showing you won't do it justice, and it's something you'd really need to see in person. But I do have to say, compared to the iPhone and the Galaxy S23 and 4, Dolby Vision at this screen size just may be a gimmick. As I feel the iPhone and S22 displays look great too with standard HDR, and side by side, they kind of look the same to me unless I'm really picking out specific features. I don't think that's a bad thing since those phones are more money, and I think those screens look great too. But for day-to-day usage, all of these displays look great, and they're visible outdoors, which is more important than Dolby Vision in my opinion. When it comes to getting into the phone, you have the face to unlock and you have the fingerprint scanner. It doesn't work like the iPhone would, so there's been times where I'm looking right at it and it just doesn't pop up. But most of the time, it works fine, especially if you have decent lighting. But the fingerprint scanner works well too. So most of the time, I just tap the screen and I look at it, I can get in. But if not, for whatever reason, the fingerprint scanner works fine too. Now, audio-wise, I think the speakers sound pretty good. They get very loud. However, clarity isn't quite there. They can sound a bit clashy and distorted at higher volumes, and these speakers do sound similar to the 10T, which didn't have that gimmick name behind it. So I'm not sure if they're not optimized fully yet or if it's just kind of a gimmicky name. Now, speaking of gimmicks, let's talk about gaming. The touch response time is very impressive. Playing a game like Battle Prime or PUBG, the touch latency feels great. Now here's a look at it in slow motion, and pay attention to how fast the game reacts to all of my touches and swipes. That's pretty impressive. Now staying on theme with gaming, this phone has so many gaming features baked into it. I feel okay calling it a gaming phone. Now it is using something called, you ready for this one? Hyper Boost Gaming Engine. It's the most gamerish title I've ever heard. Which OnePlus says is machine learning frame rate stabilization technology. Look, I don't know about all that. I don't know how it works, but let's get into the numbers. That's what I really care about. I found when playing PUBG after downloading the high-res texture packs, I also maxed out the settings to make the game look as good as possible. With those settings enabled, I had 30 frames per second, which is what this game runs at on mobile. When playing Battle Prime on the highest graphics setting, I was at mid 50 frames per second, but on the default settings, which was low res, I was locked in at 60 frames per second. Call of Duty Mobile under max FPS settings, I was locked at 90 frames per second, but that does adjust the graphics to low. So when I switched over to ultra graphics, I was actually at the max, locked at 60. Playing Rocket League Swipe, I was getting 60 frames per second, which is the highest this game goes. Game Pass, which relies on internet connection more so than horsepower, ran exceptionally well too. And it was comparable to when I had it on my computer, which was pretty expected. Now, one thing I was interested in was the temps of the phone. The OnePlus 10T did a great job keeping the temperatures down while gaming and in general due to its cooling chambers. And I wondered if this phone would do the same thing. After playing around 1 hour between games, the temps were rock solid around 39 centigrade, which is well below the threshold of dangerous temperatures. But of course, that is my experience. If you see something else, definitely let me know in the comments below. OnePlus is known for its software, and there's a lot of nice software baked in for gaming, things that other phones do as well, but I like how OnePlus does it a bit more. You can adjust gaming presets between low power mode, balance mode, and pro gamer mode, and those give you different battery implications and also performance. This phone comes with Android 13 and it's running OnePlus's Oxygen OS. And as expected, it comes with tons of features and all sorts of customizations. Now, I'm not going to do a deep dive into the software as other people will cover it, but there are a lot of great things that it has. Now, one thing I enjoy is the ability to change the accent color and even shape of the icons. Also, you could change the always on display and how the fingerprint scanner looks and all those little tiny things that makes using a OnePlus phone fun to use. And it's what led me to OnePlus such a long time ago as my primary phone. Now, I do love pulling an app and making it into a window and then sliding it away when I don't need it and pulling back as a floating window when I need to access it. I love doing that for text messages or Telegram or even Twitter sometimes when I'm holding a conversation. Most of these features, if not all of these features, will be available on older OnePlus phones. So software isn't anything unique to this specific phone. So don't upgrade the phone just for the software. Most of the time I've been using this phone was before the phone has officially came out. So I'm sure there will be bugs that would need to be squashed over time, but there has been some crashing apps and some inconsistencies with auto brightness and Bluetooth disconnects. I'll update you guys in a different video if those bugs are still around, but I know there's typically an update that comes out when the device actually comes out that fixes a lot of these day one issues, but the jury is still out until I can confirm my bugs are fixed. Now, what's unique is that there's an all new, super hyped camera system featuring Hasselblad technologies. OnePlus has made a huge emphasis on cameras for the past few years, and honestly, they have not met the expectations. But I think this year might be a little bit different. I love what OnePlus did with the camera systems. Let's take a look at some of the photos taken from this camera. I found not only did the camera software launch faster, but the shutter is faster than before in lower light and also has great dynamic range with HDR. I think it captures the essence so well when taking a picture of buildings with different textures and lighting. The zoom lenses are pretty consistent between each focal length, but at times the ultra wide can push a bit warmer than the standard wide angle lens, but it's nothing that jumps out to most people. I think the night mode is pretty solid too, and it doesn't blow out highlights. It looks pretty clean overall. When taking a selfie, I found that the image is sharp and detailed, and the portrait mode is pretty accurate too. I'm really impressed with it. Comparing it to a Pixel, you can see the Pixel has more contrast, and I think it nails the skin tone better, but OnePlus is right there with it. If the lighting isn't perfect, then for some reason, the camera software starts to lighten the skin tone a lot, as you can see from these images. I hope software can fix this, but we'd have to wait for my longer term reviews to see if that's changed over time. But as of right now, if you're in lower light settings, you're gonna see your skin tone blown way off. When we talk about video, I think this phone still lags behind the competition. Sure, it looks okay, it's very passable, and the audio is actually really good, and I'm very impressed with that. This is the OnePlus 11 front-facing camera under good lighting. I have a big studio light in front of me, but this is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. Now for reference, let's compare it to the iPhone. So this is compared to the iPhone 14 front-facing camera. Same settings, same scenario, all those things. Let me know what you think. And now let's see the difference between this very good lighting and then transitioning away from that into some pretty dim lighting. I think it does a pretty good job adjusting. And then we're going to walk back into this good lighting again. So here it is. What do you think? And this is what it looks like in lower light settings. I have the lights off in my house and it's sort of dark. So imagine if you're at a restaurant, this is the video quality you can expect. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have that same quality that you see from Samsung, that you see from Apple. And as a content creator who uses video and needs the best type of video possible in my pocket at times, going to OnePlus just doesn't make sense for me on that part because it just doesn't look that good. OnePlus is known for fast charging, and the OnePlus 11 has it. Now what's interesting is that the charging brick is USB-A to C and not C to C like we saw in the 10 series. I'm not sure why. And regardless, it's 80-watt Super VOC Plus fast charging. OnePlus says it's 27 minutes from 0 to 100, which I found to be right on the nose when doing my own testing. The phone also doesn't get hot when charging, even at those speeds. OnePlus did put a lot of effort into keeping the battery health with the phone with a battery health engine, which does a bunch of stuff that I don't understand, but it should keep the phone lasting longer over periods of time, especially when you're doing this super fast charging. Now, speaking of charging, battery life is always those big subjective things. And to be honest, I have not been on the phone that much. I haven't traveled that much. I haven't done those things. So I've always been at home. So testing the battery, you take with a grain of salt. But I found myself getting around 5.5 hours of screen on time, which for me is pretty standard for high-end phones. So coming to this phone right here, getting that is really good. But what's more impressive is the fast charging. So even then, let's say I'm getting low. Let's say I'm about to go out for the night. Plug it in for 10-15 minutes. I get around 3 more hours of battery life, and that right there is totally worth it. So anyways, I would say this phone is all-day battery life plus a little bit the next day if you want, but just pop in the charging and you'll be good to go. So this phone retails at $699, and I think for this price, this is a very good phone, just depending on what's important to you when it comes to a phone. All in all, I think OnePlus returned to its roots on this phone, and I'm really enjoying it. I wanna know what you think. Sound off down below. Kevin the Tech Ninja, have a wonderful day. Talk to you guys later. Peace.